So welcome everybody. So good to have you all here. This is a meeting, so-called non-duality. It's about exactly what's going on right here, right now. Just this. There's nothing else happening. Sounds. My voice. Could be thoughts. And that's the beauty of this message, is it's always available right here as whatever's happening, available to be gone into. And usually we don't do that. Usually we're so lost in thought, in story, that the simplicity that's already here, just here, call it presence, thoughts give the appearance of movement. I'll say that again. Thoughts give the appearance of movement, that something's happening. Dan and I were talking about this today. Thoughts are a map. You guys have heard the expression, if you've been in any kind of spiritual circles, the map is not the territory. You familiar with that? The map is not the territory is exactly that. The map of the United States is not the United States. Right? It's a replica. It's a dumbing down. It's a simplified version that you could fold up and put in your pocket, but it's not the United States. And so our thoughts do the same thing. They make like a cheap replica, an imitation of whatever it is you think you're thinking about. And then it deals with it at that level. Another way you may have heard this talked about is the menu's not the meal. So I can look at the menu and see all this wonderful food, but it's not nourishing, the menu. So thoughts aren't nourishing, they're stressful. Now, there's nothing wrong with thoughts, but they are a limitation. So if I come over to your house and I say, can I use your bathroom? That's a very specific thing, a bathroom. No problem. Language, thought, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But when my interest is, what am I? That can never be answered by a thought. A thought is like a single perspective, but here in this moment, there's everything, isn't there? Let's see for ourselves. Isn't there everything? There's walls, there's lighting, there's air, there's temperature, there's a body sitting on a chair or a couch. Maybe questions arising, maybe liking arising, maybe not liking arising. So many things are going on. And when I'm lost in thought, that all gets pushed aside, and all I'm focused on is my story. And the sky, earth, air, all that's gone. And it's just all about me and my story. And that is such suffering, to be limited to just your story when there's literally everything appearing here spontaneously, every moment, appearing and disappearing, never the same. So again, no thought can contain everything. It's a limitation, and that's why it doesn't feel good to seek. A seeking is moving me away from here, and here is everything. Here is what we've been looking for, but not as a thought, not as a thing, not as one particular thing, but here is all. As Nkosi says, all is this. So even my pain, even my suffering, right? Even confusion, whatever is arising is this already, appearing as that. And so this is an open meeting. Everybody's invited to participate. If you have a comment or question, please feel free to unmute and jump in. We would love to hear from you. How's it going for you? What's your experience? You can't, there's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. There's just what is. And it's never not just what is. That's why it's the end of past or future. Because if there's only ever just what is, there's no time for a past or a future. There's just what is.
So what do you do with this information? I'm sitting here going like, my mind's everywhere, trying to figure it out, yeah, everything. And I've heard the information, but what do you, is there anything to do? I mean, and if there's nothing to do, then my question, then what do you do? But and the only thing I keep getting is that, well, there's nothing here. The only satisfactory answer to that is, well, there's nothing here. So there's nothing to do because there's nothing here. That's almost like, well, I'm not here. There's no experience here. And that seems to satisfy something. But even that would, my mind would say, well, that would have to be an experience in and of itself.
Was there a question?
That is the question. Well, the question. Well, I want an answer. So the question is, what is the answer? I don't know why I'm drawn to this stuff. It's amazing how drawn I am to whatever we're doing. I'm really drawn to it, and it makes me nuts at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's beautiful stuff. Yeah.
Well, I know Nkosi has said the question is wholeness, and the answer is wholeness. The one asking is wholeness, asking. It's not a dawn. Dawn's a label.
I was thinking about what you said last week, Don. You were saying something about what we're saying here, and I think that Michael said something like, well, what are we saying here? We definitely are saying something here, because even a discussion about non-duality is dual. Like, in order to have non-duality, you have to have duality. One thing, sometimes I think I might have heard somebody on here say, like, there's no path. And seems like that's kind of semantics. Like, I want to like jump forward and say, yes, there is a path. No, nobody's on it, but there is one. Like, I'll bet you most of the people on here, if you ask them, they wouldn't say that they just were out water skiing and golfing, and then one day they ended up on Michael's non-duality meetup. I bet you they'd say that they'd give you probably a list of things that they had gone through, like for myself, like Alan Watts, Nisargadatta Maharaj, Krishnamurti, Eckhart Tolle, like they give you a list of that. And that, I think there's elements of that path that are very soothing, like that are, okay, there is just this talking, nobody's talking, there's just the talking, there's just the room, and maybe there's the story of this path. But like the things that some of my gurus have taught me about death, like every day, like those soothe me. And other concepts, like they're very soothing, very, very beautiful, in addition to this. So I don't know what you call that.
Story.
Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I said you call it story. right?
You
So
might
it's
call
all,
it story, but it's, is that like, what do you mean when you say you call it story? Because it almost sounds like when people mention story here, it's almost like stories to be avoided. Like, I don't feel like I want to avoid those things, those soothing things are beautiful.
and to point to what we always point to, that's just this. Right? So that's this, like, when you went through the list, Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, etc., those are things that occurred, and now they're in the story. They're part of the story. They're a thought. They're not happening right now, in this moment. That's what we're pointing to, is that everything is just in the moment, what's happening. So there's an experience of this is soothing, this isn't soothing. And that experience is different for everybody. But that's just what's in that moment. And everything else attached to it is the story of why it's soothing and what's soothing and how it's soothing and what happened in my past that makes it soothing. As opposed to just this in this moment being what it is.
Yeah, I understand that you can sort of like, it's like unraveling like fabric, like some stitching in a fabric. And I understand that you can unravel it like that. I just wonder how many of you like do that. Not that there's anybody doing anything, and I'm not just kidding when I say that. I do understand that, or I don't not know it. But I just wonder, like, just talking like plain old country talk, I just wonder how many of us, like, during the day, like, do you always turn to this is story? Or do you, is there the appearance that you're making use of that story? Yes, you're dismantling it, but I don't dismantle all day long.
What comes up, Thomas, listening to you and Joe's input is examples of stories is asking questions and then speculating answers and then making assumptions, and then, you know, it's just the mind's play, and it's not what's really here, other than it's making a lot of assumptions and then drawing conclusions and coming up with explanations and then bringing in a question, and then, you know, it's an endless stream of concepts and ideas, and yes, it's certainly not right or wrong. It's just not, like, you know, the map is not the territory. It's not the territory, it's the map.
Does anybody else that's in this meeting have, like, does anybody listen to anybody? Like, I've heard names mentioned on here. Some of you folks must. I like to binge watch. I was binge watching Krishnamurti. Does anybody else do that kind of thing?
I made a list at one point of people on YouTube who talk in a similar way. And I'll spend time with one of them or the other one, depending on chance, perhaps. However, when I feel like I'm starting to binge and it feels like I am substituting more input for just investigating, and that I need to go investigate. And then I stop listening to one of these 6 or 8 people. The list is growing. And the list is simply made out of people who seem to be saying more or less the same thing.
I think that for me to answer your question, whatever, it's the language that I have listened to those other teachers for sure. A lot of the names you mentioned. I'm not currently doing that. If you said how many of you are doing it, I'm not doing it right now. I'm certainly not doing it right now, like in this here. And I might very well do it in another point, but to bring the focus back to what I really grokked at a certain point several years ago was like, it's just what's in the moment. It's just what occurs. And so now the fact that that happened at some point, that's a thought. And the fact that it could happen in the future is another thought. And ultimately, I don't know which, when, what, whether. But right now I'm not, to answer the question.
I also answered the question. I used to believe the more I listen to people talk about this, the closer I'm getting to it. And so, you know, and now there is kind of a flood of radical non-dual speakers available on YouTube. And so I thought, if I just keep listening, you know, it'll, you know, anyhow, and that starts turning out to be a little bit like a game or a joke, you know, because there isn't, yeah. And these people will tell you that too, you know, like Jim Newman will tell you right up front that there's nothing to be gotten. And true, also for showing up on these meetings on Wednesday. You know, it's like, I always wonder, am I going to go to the Wednesday night meeting tonight? And you know, and I find it enriching, and I enjoy being here.
Nice. Hi, Nkosi, welcome.
Hello, Michael. Hello, everyone.
You know, because he's in South Africa, I feel like I should shout.
Yeah, I'd like to add a piece to Thomas. I think it's a great question. Because my experience, it's funny, I just got off the phone having this conversation about the conceptual versus the experiential, but that's why when I coming to the Wednesday night meetings for me, like you talking about who's one of my all-time favorite teachers is Alan Watts. And I think to read or listen or Eckhart Tolle, they serve a purpose, meaning, and I'm obviously talking about my path, which is I feel more spacious, I feel more experiential, I feel less in the form, if you will, or the separation. And so I think going back to your question, I might be coming from a slightly different angle, but it's a great question because there are things that I want to do that enrich my experience or help me feel more with whatever this is. And there's no question that where I put my attention or time or energy, it influences it. And so we can say that's all this too, which is fine. But to your point, I find that there are things that I tend to put on one of Michael's sessions before I go to bed at night. I probably do it almost every night for like the last few months because it's reinforcing a space that I like to be in. And so I'll say one last thing, which a lot of my focus now is on silence, and it's on space, and it's on boundlessness and formlessness and emptiness and things that, whether I'm listening to Alan Watts or not, that's igniting more space or listening to Michael or Dan or Nkosi or Peter or anybody. That the idea is that there are things that are experiential that that's why we're all here. We could say we're all here because that's what this is. That's fine too. But I know I'm here because I feel like when I get off of these Zoom calls, I feel more expansive and I feel freer. And I feel less, let's say, like the thoughts that Michael's opening was today. I feel like the thoughts are not right here on the head as much as maybe they're more out here now. And that's just a wonderful experiential. And so, so I just wanted to share with you, Thomas, that I do find that I can listen to Alan Watts all day, and for the reason because he's opening me up to expansiveness and helping me get to a place that we talk about, I think, a lot on Wednesday nights, which is spaciousness and freedom. So anyway, just wanted to share my 2 cents.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, everybody. I'm loving all the sharing from everybody. It's beautiful. I can share my sort of take on teachers, how I used to run an Eckhart Tolle meetup before this many years ago, and was into Muji for years. And at a certain point, it dawned on me very strongly, as wonderful as their teachings and all the teachers, their teachings are, it dawned on me that, well, it doesn't really help me that Muji or Eckhart Tolle or anybody else is enlightened. Ramana Maharshi, UG, anybody. What good does it do you if someone else is quote unquote enlightened? That is of no use to you at all. So at a certain point, it occurred to me that what I'm looking for, I need to discover for myself. That it was too important, too valuable to leave it up to the good opinion of someone outside me.
It's really shocking when you find out that that's possible too. Like, if you want to really simplify it, you could kind of like say that I went through my life like thinking I'm too stupid to have that happen to me, and really I'm the only like none of the gurus can do anything. Like, I'm the only one who can do it. It's really like, whoa, when you realize that, you're like, wow, it's pretty cool.
Nkosi, brother, jump in here whenever you can.
Yeah, I'd like to say as well, what is being shared is beautiful. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's a beautiful sharing. Well, whatever may seem to be happening, somebody that appears to be seeking, to be practicing, to be looking for this, it's okay. As I always say, it's okay. It's not that it's wrong or right. It's just what's happening. But there isn't any real somebody who's doing that. It's just everything or wholeness doing it. You know, whatever question may seem to be coming up, whatever answer may seem to be giving, that's just everything asking a question or giving an answer. There isn't anybody who's doing it already. You know, and this what is not against anything, because what seems to be anything or everything is just an expression of what is. So there is no dividing line here. Everything is beautiful just the way it is. Somebody complaining about it, somebody not getting it, somebody getting it, somebody about to give up. That's okay. It's beautiful because it's just everything expressing as that. It's just this expressing as that. So already There's no one here. There's no Michael, there's no Nkosi, there's no Alan. It's just what's happening. It's just this appearing as that. So every expression is okay and it's beautiful. It's not wrong or right. You know. So how should I put it? This is how it's seen here. That's everything is just okay. It doesn't matter what seems to be happening. It doesn't really matter because everything is one and it's beautiful. It's okay. There is always that sense of okayness with everything because everything comes from the same thing. So it doesn't matter which direction may seem to take. If it takes this direction or the other direction, it doesn't matter because it's just one thing. So yeah, that's it.
I used to beat myself up, like I'd make a shopping list and I'd go to the store and I'd load up on all this stuff, get home, and the thing that I went for, I forgot. But it didn't bother me. Doesn't bother me anymore. Just what happened.
A friend of mine canceled on me last night. And she's like, thank you for being so understanding. I'm so sorry. Thank you for not being mad. And I was like, why would I be mad? Like, it just happened. I was meant, it wasn't, it's fine. Like, it wasn't meant to be. Like, I'm meant to do something else tonight. I'm totally fine with that.
And there's a story about how you ended up that way, because over the years you became more and more accepting by having gurus and experiences, and you've ended up at this point where you're like, you know what? Now I understand. Now for lack of a better phrase, now I understand that there's no advantage or disadvantage here. I can let go. So it's part of a path, right?
It's part of a story for sure. You're right. Like, if I'm talking to people, like if I'm telling them, like someone says to me, wow, how did you get so calm? And by the way, I'm not always calm, but like, how did you get like that? Right. I tell a story that includes the path that you just mentioned, right? Because that's how in our terms, that's just what happens in that moment. And that's how human beings relate. So yes, there is a story attached to it.
Yeah, maybe we can just say a few words about story. Stories are beautiful. All of the stories are beautiful. They're not beautiful when they're taken personally, as my story.
But your story it's got to be beautiful because it's coming from everything. And in that everything, there's me having this story that says that it's suffering, that kind of a story. But that's everything expressing as that. So that itself has to be beautiful. I mean, I'm trying to convince myself of that. I don't believe it, but but that's beautiful too. So if I'm sitting here trashing myself or confused, whatever, that's story. I got a lot of story. That's everything. Again, expressing exactly that. So that's got to be then beautiful. And even me not being convinced of that is beautiful. I'm trying, I'm practicing here, So everything's got to be beautiful. And even that, even as I say that, but that thought that says, but it's not beautiful because I don't feel good. That's got to be beautiful too. So it just seems like it's just going back or this is my practice. It's going back and back and back and back and back and back.
Yeah, the me is struggling to see that everything is beautiful. I mean, everybody's saying it, and it makes sense. I'm okay. Let me try again. Let me say again, one more try. Everything is beautiful, but the me cannot see that. The me cannot. The me is this energy of no, it's not beautiful. So it's not going to see everything is beautiful. That's what the me is rejecting. It's just this energy of rejecting the whatever the wholeness. Yeah. So it's like it was Dawn, you said it so brilliantly at the beginning. I mean, Michael was asking you, well, is there a question here? What is your question? And you just said, well, that is my question. My question is, I want an answer. Which is brilliant. I mean, there really is no question. The me is not asking a particular question. It's just this demand for an answer, because it's this feeling that this is just not right, and I need an answer that will make it right. That's the me. The me is already feeling that, and that brings the question. So that is what this story, people were asking, what is a story? What is this story thing? There is no story here. As Michael said, the question is wholeness, the answer is wholeness. It's already wholeness, everything is wholeness. So there isn't any story in there. There never will be a story except for just this. But this feeling of me demands an answer in the form of a story. That's where the answer would be. The answer is going to be as a story. So it's just this energy of needing an answer and then needing a story, because the story is the only place that the answer could be. I mean, Michael-Dan-Nkosi, everyone is saying, no, it's just here. It's just this. The answer is this. It's not a story. It's what already is. It's what just is. But this me feeling won't hear that, because the me is just demanding an answer and looking for a story. And then all we can do, is just, I don't know, you can see that. Look again. Is there really a question here? Is there really a need for an answer beyond just what is already here? And the pointing to the fact that that is the only answer, it's the only thing there is just this, just as it is, just right now. And it's never going to be in the form of a story. And the story is just something imagined by this energy of me who's looking for something and looking for an answer in a story. Okay.
No, I also hear, I'm getting back to Thomas's path. I mean, a very popular story for the me is that this isn't enough, or this isn't complete, or that there is somebody here that needs to get somewhere. I see as the most popular story. And then you get the practice, and you get the teacher, and then you get, if you practice more and you go in the right direction, then you're more likely to get there. It's the idea that there is something other than this. And to me, a popular story for the me is that you have to get there before you can just be here. And of course, that's all a story.
Yes, and as Nkosi is always saying, that's beautiful. That's this. The stories are this, the search, the journey, the path. It's all this. Perfectly perfect. But it's all this already. So there's no need for the story, because the story is just this. There's no need for an answer. The only answer is already this.
So then, Dan, if you're in your story or not, I think where Don was going, Don, correct me if I'm wrong, is even though you're talking about the me and the me story, and to watch the me, or however you want to, I'm not sure how you put it, if someone goes into the me, that's this too. And I think that's what Don, I sense, is trying to say, is that no matter what happens, it's this. So if you're in your me and you do the me thing and you don't do it, you don't watch the me, or you don't strategize right, or don't acknowledge it's already this. And I think that's where Don is saying, it's like, well, it's already this anyway. So whether he does the me or not, I happen to agree that for me, my experience is when I'm in space and not into the me and the story, I tend to feel a lot better. But I think, because I always think of this as being the Tao, and everything is the Tao, and the Tao is always moving, and there's no left or right or wrong. It just keeps moving, so to speak. And so I think that's where Don was going. So when you gave your explanation, Dan, it still sounded like, in a way, unless I misunderstood you, that you were still kind of using a strategy, if you will, to say that, well, that's the me. You know what I mean? Like you were saying something like, or Peter was also saying in the same vein, was sort of saying, I hear when people say their story and they're trying to get somewhere, or they're trying to seek something, which I get, totally get it. I get both of you, but I'm just trying to also, I think I'm trying to come in from where Don was saying. And so anyway, I'm curious what you guys have to say about that, because Don, was that where you were trying to go with that? Okay. So I guess the question would be for you, Dan, and Peter, is you use the metaphor of the me or the story, and you talked about what the me was trying to do or not do. And I guess if that's all this too, I know it's very confusing, but
Well, no, I think it's very interesting, and I'm stuttering because I don't like to use the jargon, but it gets complicated when we're starting to talk about the me as if there really was a me, and we're assuming stuff that are just story and that are not really like real. And so it gets complicated. And I think, and that's where at the end of the day, we say, well, it's all okay, or it's all beautiful, or, because it's all the Tao. I get that. It's all included. That was done a few weeks ago. Everything is included. That was great.
Yeah, well, and I like, Alan, what you just said sounded good to me too. I mean, so I hope that it didn't sound like I was, like rejecting that.
No.
I'm just sort of just pointing to this because John was the one, he came up with the question, which he does really well. He tends to, which I love, but and which is the me question. So I'm just also like to point to this energy of me, which is this question and this demand for an answer. And I was also trying to point out that that's really where the whole story business comes up, because the story is just this energy of formulating this into a structure or a form that could be, it seems like it could be an answer. And there's a kind of conspiracy between this me energy and this story, the thoughts, anyway, I was just kind of pointing to that, but,
And I appreciate that for both of you. And I think to speak on behalf of Don again, that I feel like what he was saying is that's your explanations were both beautiful. And I can identify with them. But I think what he was saying is that if he does go in the story or he does become the me or whatever, that's this too. I kind of feel like
Yeah,
that's what-
yeah, well, absolutely.
okay. Don, I'll stop speaking for you now. Sorry. I'm going to mute myself, Don. I was a ventriloquist in another life, but I won't go there.
Yeah, everything is this. There's no way of not being this. Can't find anything that isn't this. So all the questions are already answered.
What questions? I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
If you say everything is this, then there must be a not this.
What would you do with a not this if you found it?
Well, when I don't know, I think that I hear uh the group here doing a lot with not this. They use it as a comparative platform for this.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about this, then
Yeah, well, what I would say, and Joanne could step in here because she just did it a minute ago and say, well, okay, that's exactly the story. The comparing the this with the not this, and that is what is a story. But this actually doesn't have a not this. It just doesn't. That's why it's non-dual, right? It doesn't.
this is
it
the one
doesn't-
case, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Non-duality is duality.
Okay, but you had to make up a, well, okay, I don't know, we could. I'm just kind of saying, well, yeah, that takes us into the story of comparing this to not this. So you have to imagine a not this. But that's too, because it's this. It's already here. You know.
And
you
then,
know.
and sometimes we forget, we're trying to figure it out. And there is those that say the mind can't figure it out, it's nothing to be figured out. And yet
Right.
we keep like dabbling in trying to explain it and understand it. And then eventually it turns out it
There
cannot
just
be
there
understood.
just is not anything to figure out, and if you're going to figure it out, then you need a story, because that's where you need to go. That's what makes you figure it out. But there's nothing to figure out. You need a problem first to solve, and that's what doesn't exist. And that, I'm not saying believe that, right? I'm just suggesting and then saying, well, let's look at it. Let's look and see what's here.
Nkosi, maybe you could take us out with some words. Oh, you're muted.
The doer of things is already not there. So right now, there is no me who's seeking for this. And there are no people who are talking about this. There's just this. And it's going nowhere. There may seem to be a journey for somebody, what seems to be somebody seeking for this. But that is appearing to happen from that place which is not seeking at all. So what seems to be appearing, seeking for this, is also this appearing as that. So it seems to be happening, but it's not really happening. So all the seeking, the practices, or what may seem to happen that way is going nowhere, because it's still this appearing as that. That's not to say that that shouldn't be done. No, it's just what's happening. And it's beautiful. And it's going nowhere. Because there's just this, there's only this, there's nothing here. So nobody has ever said anything, nobody has ever done anything, nobody has ever spoken anything, because there isn't anybody here. The separate self is imaginary. It seems to be there, but when it is looked for, it is seen that it's not even there. It's not even there. It's just imaginary. You are not already. There's no you. There's just this. So this is beautiful. This is okay. And this is going nowhere. What seems to be a journey is no journey. What seems to be a practice is no practice at all. It's just this, and it's going nowhere, and it's okay. It's not wrong or right. So there's no story here. There's no me here already. There are thoughts that may seem to be appearing, but it, as well, it's just everything appearing as thoughts. So I can say they are not thoughts because it's just this. It may seem to be a story, but there is no story because the story is this. So everything is okay, just the way it is. No matter which shape or form it may appear to be, it's just an expression of spaciousness, of this nameless, formless, undivided, no thing. Yeah, that's what's becoming up.
A quick question. That's so beautiful, so beautiful. Can the heart, what you're referring to, can the heart see this? Or just, is it that the heart knows this, or could it be called the heart?
It could be called the heart. It's been given so many names, but it's nameless. You can call it a raccoon, mouse, chicken, spaciousness, consciousness, God, Shiva, Buddha, Christ. It's still this, but itself, it's nameless. It's boundless, everywhere present, has no thing.
Is there an access to this?
Even what seems to be in excess is already this. It's everything. The seeking is this. Not getting is, not getting this is this. Getting it is this. Losing hope is this. Anger is this. Everything is this. There's no separation here. There's no one who's outside of this talking about this. There's no outside here. There's just this. And you are it already.
Yeah, so now this is it, and this is it feeling good here. Okay. Good. Okay. Feeling good.
There's no escape.
Now,
There's
and
no
then
escaping.
good. Thank you. I like that. Oh boy.
What did you
Really?
say? What
I
did
don't
you
know.
say?
Whoa.
What did you say, Nkosi?
Oh God.
There's no escaping this.
Yes.
So feeling good now, then there's maybe in the so-called future, there will be not feeling good. So, which will be this. Now, is it just my preference that this feeling good now, I'm feeling good, okay? Everything is okay. Everything's beautiful
Exactly.
at the moment. Now, 20 minutes from now, have a fight with my wife or something, whatever. And it'll be what it is, but it will feel different. How much effort is to be brought into the practice? I think maybe what Alan was saying, or how much effort is to go into the practice of everything as it is, but the result being feeling good. I came on this call. I could have done other things. I came on this call. I got what I wanted. I tend to get this when I come. So it's all good. It's all perfect, but I would rather have the perfection feeling good than the perfection feeling not good. Okay.
There's no one to get this. There's just this.
It makes you feel good. Do it.
There's no one feeling good. There
That's
isn't. There's no one feeling good. There's no one feeling bad. That feeling is just hanging by itself like anything else out there. It's just sitting there. And then we're like, oh, that's my feeling, and I feel it. Nobody's feeling that feeling.
or someone could be feeling that feeling, and that's this too.
Also, the attachment to good or not good, it is what it is. It's not one thing particular. It's what it is, whatever it is.
That's stuff where I say like no one's feeling that feeling, which I learned that terminology mostly here, or I was exposed to it mostly here, and I've just latched onto it and I use it because like if you get blindsided and like I don't know, your roof starts leaking in the middle of a, you know, electrical storm, and it's raining and snowing and your heat power goes out. Like, it really, I don't know what to say about it. It has an ambiance to it, to say this isn't happening. Like, nobody's experienced and then like nobody is, that feeling out there is not attached to anybody. Nobody's feeling that feeling. I don't know. It's got a je ne sais quoi to it.
Thank you guys so much for coming, each and every one of you. We love you and appreciate you. Nkosi, thank you, brother, for coming. Everybody have a great evening.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Bye, everybody.